Noah didn't warm to people easily. He watched first, observed, measured whether someone was safe before he ever let them step close to him. Most people never got that far. Susie, Jack, Bree, Anna, Mark, and Andrew had been exceptions. They were the kinds of people who made the first move in friendships, friendly, persistent, and warm in ways that made it difficult for someone like Noah to keep his distance forever. They pursued him, not the other way around. Eventually Noah let them in. Noah was terrified of change. Tate understood that because he was the same way. They both clung to what they knew. Maybe that was why they were so compatible growing up. Two boys who hated change had built their lives around each other. Looking back on it now, Tate wondered if that was also why they had never admitted the deeper things they felt. The strange intensity between them, the jealousy, the possessiveness neither of them could quite explain. Because admitting those feelings would have changed everything. And change was the one thing they both feared most. So instead, they pretended everything was normal. But whenever new people entered their lives, friends, girlfriends, strangers, something inside both of them tightened. If the wrong person stepped into their lives, their dynamic might never be the same again. Chloe stepped out of the car with the kind of bright, effortless energy that made people smile without even trying. She smoothed her dress, looked up at the house, and gave me that bubbly, excited grin of hers. She looked happy. Meanwhile, my old childhood home stood in front of us like a portal to hell. Because once I walked Chloe through that front door, certain expectations my family had quietly carried about me for years were going to shift. And I wasn't sure any of them were ready for that. I wasn't sure I was ready either. My eyes drifted across the driveway and the front yard automatically. Noah's car wasn't there. Relief slid through my chest so suddenly it almost made me laugh. Maybe I'd get a few minutes alone with my parents before the nuclear bomb went off in the living room. Also known as the moment Noah showed up. Chloe looped her arm through mine, completely unaware of the war happening in my head. "This house is beautiful," she said warmly, looking up at it with genuine admiration. "You grew up here." "Yeah," I muttered. She squeezed my arm affectionately. "I can't wait to meet your parents." I forced a smile, but my stomach twisted. She had no idea what she was walking into. And she definitely had no idea about Noah. No one ever really understood Noah until they saw him and me in the same room together. Then they noticed the gravity. The tension. Maybe I had a little time. Because the second Noah walked through that door, the entire atmosphere in the house would change. It always did. "Honey," said Talia as she rushed forward and wrapped me in a hug, "you're more than 5 minutes late." She pulled back, smiling, but her eyes quickly shifted to the guest standing beside me on the porch. "Oh," she said with bright curiosity. "Hi, I'm Tate's mother, I'm Talia Blue." I gestured toward Chloe. "Mom, this is Chloe," I said, "my girlfriend." Talia's face broke into a huge smile. She stepped forward and hugged Chloe warmly, which was slightly out of character for her. My mother was affectionate but usually more reserved with strangers. "Welcome, honey, it's so nice to meet you." Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the look on my father's face. Terrence was smiling, but I knew him well enough to recognize when it was forced. "Come inside, honey," Talia said quickly. "It's a little nippy out here for us to just stand around." We stepped into the house. "Would you like a refreshment?" she asked brightly. "We have everything." "Do you have a Cosmo?" Chloe asked politely. "That's actually my favorite cocktail," my mother said with excitement. "Let me go mix a few." She turned toward the kitchen before glancing back. "What about you, Tate? What would you like to drink?" "Martini," Tate said. Terrence gave a thin smile from across the room. "I'll have a Rob Roy, dear." Chloe tried making polite conversation while my mother began preparing the drinks, but my father's eyes were locked on me. He was glaring. No one else seemed to notice. Only me. I shifted slightly, looking around the room. "Is Noah here?" I asked. "No, honey," Talia called from the kitchen. "He said he's going to be about 20 minutes late. He had a dentist appointment he had to attend, nothing serious, just an annual checkup." "Good for him," I said casually. "I need to get into mine. We usually go together, but I had a date with Chloe." "No, Noah didn't say you were bringing a date along tonight," Talia said slowly, her brows knitting together. I shifted in my chair. I haven't told him about Chloe yet. You haven't told him, she said, her voice rising. I rubbed the back of my neck and avoided her eyes. I didn't really get a chance to tell him. He's been busy with several social events of his and it just never seemed like the right moment. My mother's face froze. It wasn't anger, it was disbelief. They shared the same house, everyone in the room knew it. I mean, you two live together, honey, Talia said carefully. You didn't tell your roommate you live with that you were bringing a girl to a family dinner. Well, I shifted again in the chair, suddenly feeling like I was 12 years old and being interrogated. Looking back, maybe I should have tried a bit harder, but you know Noah, he's shy, he hates when things change. Talia stared at me as she could already see the evening collapsing in slow motion. She knew Noah. Tate, Susie whispered sharply in my ear, her breath brushing my skin. You remember how Uncle Joey would drop bombs in the middle of family celebrations? This is exactly what it looks like. I tensed instantly, feeling the weight of her words. You need to tell him before he comes through that door, she added, her eyes darting nervously toward the front entryway. I swallowed hard. Yeah, I knew exactly what she meant. The moment Noah stepped inside and saw Chloe sitting here, smiling politely, everything would change. Everything. I nodded subtly, though my stomach twisted. Got it, I muttered under my breath, bracing myself for the inevitable. Which meant she knew this was not going to go smoothly. Not even a little. Her expression smoothed over as she forced herself back into hostess mode. Dessert, honey, she suddenly announced with exaggerated brightness. She swept into the living room carrying a tray and set it down in front of Chloe. Brownies, lemon bars, cheesecake squares, and a few chocolate truffles were arranged neatly on the plate. Oh wow, Chloe said, delighted, these look amazing. Don't eat too much, Talia said sweetly, we're having roast for dinner. I heard a car crunching over the gravel driveway and quickly stood, moving toward the porch. Noah emerged from the car wearing his green sweater, his favorite color, and a pair of well-worn jeans. He looked a little stressed, though maybe that was just the lingering tension from his doctor's appointment. I silently hoped everything had been fine. I opened my arms instinctively, ready to greet him like I always did, but instead of the usual hug, he sidestepped me almost politely. Hello, he said quickly, his voice calm, almost detached, and then he walked past me into the house. I barely had a chance to process it before he veered towards Susie, clearly intending to greet her first. That's when his eyes landed on her. A strange woman in her early 20s, sitting comfortably in the family room, looking entirely at ease among us. Noah froze for a split second, and I could see the gears turning in his head as he tried to understand exactly what he was seeing. The silence hung thick in the air, broken only by the faint hum of the heating system and the ticking of the wall clock. Noah's hand extended toward Chloe. Hi, I'm Noah, he said politely, keeping his voice calm, almost measured. Nice to meet you. Chloe smiled warmly, standing to shake his hand. Hi, I'm Chloe, she said, Tate's girlfriend. Noah blinked once, then again, and his gaze flicked to me. His face remained calm, but I could see the subtle tightening around his jaw, the faint lift of his eyebrows. He was processing, calculating like he always did when he didn't know exactly how to react. Tate, he said quietly, almost under his breath, just enough that I could hear, you didn't tell me. I opened my mouth to answer, but Talia interjected. Dinner time, everyone, she said brightly, trying to mask the tension. Let's get seated. Noah's eyes scanned the table as if evaluating every spot, and he eventually sat down between Susie and Anna. It wasn't the place he usually chose for our weekly dinners. I noticed Chloe had claimed Noah's usual chair without hesitation. She smiled politely at the family, chatting quietly with Talia about the dessert tray and even laughing at something Anna said. Noah's eyes lingered on her for a moment too long. Chloe, those brownies look amazing, he said quietly, almost distractedly. Chloe tilted her head, smiling, and replied, Thank you, Talia's been so generous. Susie, noticing the subtle tension, whispered sharply to Noah, You're in a new spot tonight, hope it's comfortable. Noah's lips twitched slightly, an almost imperceptible smirk, but he didn't respond verbally. Anna leaned over toward Chloe and whispered something, eliciting another soft laugh from her. Susie shot Anna a pointed look as if to say, not the time for giggling. I shifted in my chair, feeling the weight of Noah's stare. Calm, composed, neutral, but there was something simmering under the surface, something that Chloe hadn't yet noticed, something that made the entire table feel suddenly more fragile. Noah finally spoke, his voice low, careful, measured. So, you and Tate been together long. Chloe's smile widened, confident and warm. A few months now, we're still getting to know each other. Noah nodded once, silently acknowledging her answer, but his gaze flicked to me again, a quiet question lingering there. And what about us? I didn't answer. I just took a slow sip of water, trying to steady my pulse, and watched the subtle interplay as the family adjusted to this new, delicate dynamic around the table. Even the brownies seemed to wait in silence. Noah chatted with Susie quietly, his voice low and measured, nodding along and laughing softly at her stories. He ignored me entirely. I wasn't sure if it was intentional or if he simply didn't know what to say. My foot, on the other hand, knew exactly what to do. Under the table, I nudged his with mine, just a light touch testing the waters. He froze for a fraction of a second, then subtly shifted his foot back, brushing mine again in what I could only interpret as acknowledgement. He was intentionally ignoring me for some reason, maybe he was mad or confused. I smiled slightly to myself. The subtle game had begun. Noah didn't look at me, didn't say anything, but I could feel the tension radiating through the table, through our shared foot contact, through the quiet electricity of unspoken words. Susie and Anna were completely oblivious, chatting away with Chloe between bites, but every tap and brush under the table was a secret conversation only he and I were having. I nudged again, a little harder this time. He jerked slightly once, then froze, gripping his fork tighter. I could feel him squirming just under my touch, a tiny shiver running through him, and it made my stomach tighten. Noah may have been talking to Susie, smiling at her, being polite and attentive, but under the table he was mine. And I intended to make sure he remembered that. I nudged him again, light at first, trying to get a reaction, but he ignored me completely. I smirked, thinking maybe I needed to escalate, so I tried to kick him subtly under the table, just a playful tap, nothing serious. The moment my foot connected, he shot back a sharp kick straight into my funny bone. The pain was immediate, radiating up my leg and into my ribs. I yelped, half in surprise, half in pain. Noah's eyes met mine for just a moment, his expression serious, firm. He was angry, but there was no mistaking the message, don't touch me. His foot had spoken for him, telling me emphatically that I had crossed a boundary, something I had never experienced before with him. I swallowed the sting in my arm, nodding quietly, understanding. He wasn't being cruel, he was protecting himself. I respected the boundary. Throughout the rest of dinner, I couldn't help but steal the occasional glance at Noah. He seemed fine, or at least he was focusing his attention elsewhere, chatting quietly with Susie and Anna, nodding politely at Chloe when she laughed at something lighthearted. But every time I looked at him, I felt that familiar pang of unsettled desire and uncertainty. Noah's eyes never met mine. He was deliberately polite, attentive to the conversation, completely ignoring me, and it sent a jolt straight through me. I tried to focus on the food, on Chloe's easy charm and Talia's constant hovering, but my stomach twisted with each silent moment. Dessert arrived, a variety of pies lay out on a tray. Apple, chocolate cream, and a deep blueberry that smelled heavenly. Chloe reached for the blueberry first. "Oh wow, this looks amazing," she said, cutting a small slice for herself. Noah watched quietly, still not looking at me, as if he were immune to everything except the flavors of the pies. I wanted to lean over, nudge him gently under the table, see if I could draw a reaction, but I didn't dare, not after earlier. He ignored me entirely, and the deliberate nature of it made my chest tight. I sipped my coffee, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. My fingers twitched, my leg brushed against the table leg nervously, and I realized just how unsettled I was. Even as he laughed softly at something Susie said, even as Chloe smiled politely across the table, every fiber of me was keyed in on him, on the way he deliberately looked past me. Noah's ignoring me wasn't just polite distance, it was a wall and I hated it. And yet I couldn't tear my eyes away. "Honey, would you get the chocolate sauce from the kitchen?" Talia smiled warmly at Noah. He bolted almost instantly like a well-trained son, disappearing into the kitchen before anyone could protest or offer to help. I caught the slight hesitation of the others at the table, then realized my chance had come. Quietly, I slipped past Chloe and Talia, following Noah into the kitchen. The air felt suddenly charged as I entered behind him, the sounds of the family fatting behind the closed door. Noah was already at the counter, reaching for the chocolate sauce, and I hesitated for a moment, watching the curve of his shoulders, the way he moved with that familiar mix of grace and tension. He didn't notice me at first, focused entirely on the task, and I let myself savor the small private moment. The kitchen was warm, smelling faintly of vanilla and pie crust. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence as I finally spoke, my voice low. "Need a hand?" Noah glanced over, a flicker of surprise crossing his face, and I could feel the subtle shift in the energy between us. The rest of the family, the expectations, the tensions, they were gone. For just a moment, it was only him and me. "Can I help with anything?" I asked again, my voice softer this time. Noah's shoulders froze mid-motion. He didn't answer immediately, and I felt a pang of uncertainty twist in my chest. I waited 15 seconds and asked again. "Can I help with anything?" I repeated, trying to keep it light. "It's just one little bowl." His voice was clipped, a faint edge of irritation cutting through. "I can do it myself." Before I could say another word, he turned on his heel and walked past me, leaving the kitchen door to click shut behind him. I stood there frozen, watching the door, my mind spinning. Did I overstep? I thought. I just wanted to help. Why does he sound so sharp? The tension from earlier dinners, the nudges under the table, the way he ignored me, it all crashed over me at once. Is he mad at me? I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he just wants space. He's stressed from the dentist appointment. Maybe he's tired. But another part of me, the part that always noticed the smallest shift in his mood, whispered, "No, this is him shutting me out. He doesn't want me here. He's deliberately distant." I clenched my fists lightly, feeling the familiar ache of wanting to fix things, to pull him back into some private corner where the tension could dissipate. And yet he'd closed the door. Noah thought this was so like Tate. Keep an entire relationship hidden behind that unreadable expression of his, then casually detonate the information at Sunday dinner like he was announcing the weather. No warning, no private conversation, nothing. Noah sat there in stunned silence while Tate's family reacted around the table, realizing at the exact same moment as everyone else that Tate apparently had a girlfriend. It stung in a way Noah hated admitting to himself. They lived together. Shared space, routines, late nights, quiet mornings, entire pieces of their lives tangled together in ways that looked domestic even when neither of them acknowledged it aloud. Yet Tate couldn't be bothered to tell him beforehand. Everyone else in the room had been granted the courtesy of surprise. Noah alone got humiliation layered on top of it. Tate's mom noticed immediately. The second Noah's expression froze. Her smile faltered into something smaller and sympathetic, the kind people used when they realized someone had just been embarrassed in public. She offered him a soft, almost apologetic look from across the dinner table, like she was trying to cushion the blow Tate had delivered without realizing it. That only made it worse. "Fuck that." Noah didn't want pity from Tate's mom. He didn't want those careful little glances everyone gave when they sensed emotional shrapnel flying across a room. What he wanted was for Tate to have thought about him for 5 seconds before dropping life-changing information into the middle of Sunday dinner like it meant nothing. Tate always claimed Noah was the most important person in his life, his favorite person, the one person he trusted more than anybody else. Tate said those things constantly, with complete sincerity too, which somehow made this feel even crueler. Because if Noah truly mattered that much to him, then why was he finding out about Tate's girlfriend sitting between relatives passing mashed potatoes and friends sipping wine? Why were people who didn't even live with Tate more informed about Tate's emotional life than Noah was? Noah lived with him. Noah knew how Tate took his coffee without asking, knew what mood Tate was in by the way he shut cabinets, knew which nights Tate couldn't sleep because he paced quietly through the hallway at 3 in the morning, thinking nobody could hear him. Noah was there for the mundane, private pieces of Tate that no one else got to see. They shared walls, routines, silence, and space. Their lives overlapped in 1,000 tiny invisible ways that made this omission feel less accidental and more insulting. And apparently none of that mattered enough for Tate to pull him aside beforehand and say, "Hey, there's someone I'm seeing." Noah could feel humiliation creeping hot beneath his skin the longer he sat there. The table suddenly felt too crowded, too loud, too observant. Every clink of silverware sounded sharp. Every burst of conversation around him felt distant and distorted because all he could think about was how blindsided he'd been. He kept staring at his plate, jaw tight, trying not to let the hurt show too obviously, even though he could already tell it was written all over his face. Unfortunately, everyone else could tell too. The energy at the table had shifted almost immediately after Tate's announcement. People weren't looking directly at Noah for long stretches, but he caught the quick flickers of attention anyway. The subtle glances, the uncomfortable pauses. Tate's mother looked vaguely concerned. One of Tate's friends suddenly became very interested in his drink. Tate's mom kept shooting Noah sympathetic looks that made him want to crawl out of his own skin. Because it was obvious. Obviously Noah hadn't known. Obvious this information had hit him seconds before it hit everyone else. Obvious the person living beside Tate every day had somehow been the last to hear about the woman Tate now described as important. Noah hated that most of all that his feelings had become visible. He could practically feel the hurt sitting exposed on his face, no matter how hard he tried to flatten his expression into neutrality. His chest felt hollowed out with anger and embarrassment tangled together so tightly he couldn't separate them anymore. Angry that Tate hadn't told him. Hurt that he apparently hadn't mattered enough to deserve consideration. Humiliated that an entire table full of people had just watched him discover in real time how little priority he'd actually been given. Across from him, Tate continued talking like nothing catastrophic had happened at all. Since Noah's 18th birthday, Tate had been unintentionally insensitive for 8. Emily, Tina, Chloe. The names blurred together now, less like actual people and more like landmarks marking every moment Tate had prioritized getting laid over considering anyone else's feelings. Every relationship followed the same exhausting pattern. Tate disappeared emotionally, became distracted, acted oblivious, then looked genuinely confused when Noah ended up hurt by the fallout. Maybe Tate never meant to be cruel. At one point, Noah might have cared about intent. He didn't anymore. Because the outcome mattered more than whatever harmless explanation Tate always carried in his back pocket. Tate's carelessness still cut no matter how innocent he claimed it was afterward. Being unintentionally hurt was still being hurt. Being unintentionally overlooked still left Noah sitting at a dinner table feeling humiliated in front of people who had just watched him realize he ranked behind everyone else when it came to knowing Tate's life. And the worst part was that Tate probably still didn't fully understand why. Across the table, conversation had slowly resumed around them in that awkward way families tried to recover after tension entered a room. Someone asked a question about work. Somebody else laughed too loudly. Silverware clinked against plates while Noah sat there silently trying to force his expression back under control. Then he felt it. A foot brushes against his under the table. Noah froze for half a second before anger flared hot in his chest. Tate. Of course, Tate thought this could be fixed with physical affection. Like brushing their feet together beneath the table somehow erased the fact that Noah had just learned about Tate's girlfriend alongside a room full of spectators. Like secret little gestures mattered more than basic consideration. The foot nudged him again, carefully, almost teasingly. Noah sharply kicked Tate hard enough under the table to make the chair scrape faintly against the floor. The movement was quick, violent, instinctive. A clear knock it the fuck off. For the first time all evening, Tate finally looked directly at him. Noah wasn't angry anymore. Not really. Anger implied energy, hope, the belief that if he explained himself enough times maybe something would finally change. Noah had exhausted that part of himself years ago, back during the Tina incident at Brown when he'd finally realized Tate could apologize sincerely, feel terrible genuinely, and still repeat the exact same behavior later without understanding why it hurt so much in the first place. That had been the turning point. After that, anger stopped feeling useful. Because no matter how upset Noah got, the ending never changed. Tate remained Tate, thoughtless in these specific devastating ways while somehow still loving Noah fiercely enough to confuse him. The contradiction exhausted him. Tate could adore someone completely and still overlook them at the exact same time. Noah had spent over a decade trying to reconcile those two realities together and had finally accepted that maybe they simply coexisted. So no, he wasn't angry sitting here tonight. He was hurt. Embarrassed. Tired. There was a difference. The sharp kick under the table hadn't come from rage so much as resignation, a reflexive rejection of Tate trying to smooth things over physically instead of emotionally. Noah already knew how tonight would go otherwise. Tate would corner him later, looking confused and wounded himself, asking what he'd done wrong in that careful voice of his. Noah would explain. Tate would apologize sincerely. Noah would forgive him because he always did. And then, eventually, another Emily, another Tina, another Chloe would happen. Different woman. Same feeling. If Chloe hadn't actually shown up to dinner tonight, Noah probably would have left early already. He could feel himself nearing the edge of what he could tolerate socially without saying something cruel. Normally, he would have made an excuse about feeling tired, slipped out quietly, and driven home alone just to escape the humiliation simmering beneath his skin. But Chloe was here now. This trapped Noah at the table in the worst possible way because leaving suddenly would make everything painfully obvious. Everyone already knew he hadn't known about her beforehand. If he disappeared immediately afterward, the entire table would spend the rest of the night silently dissecting his reaction. So instead, Noah stayed seated near Tate, posture stiff and expression carefully blank, enduring dinner like a hostage trapped inside his own personal humiliation while Tate's new girlfriend smiled pleasantly across the table, completely unaware she'd just walked into the middle of emotional wreckage years in the making. What made tonight unbearable wasn't even just Tate. It was the timing. Only hours earlier, Noah had sat inside a cold medical office listening to a dentist scrape his teeth. He'd spent the entire afternoon moving through the world in a haze afterward, trying to act normal despite feeling like the ground beneath his life had shifted permanently. And somehow, after all of that, he had still dragged himself to Sunday dinner at Talia's house because that was what Noah always did. Show up, smile politely, survive the evening, keep functioning no matter what was unraveling internally. Now he sat there trapped beneath warm dining room lights while conversation blurred around him, feeling emotionally flayed open from every direction imaginable. The diagnosis. Tate's girlfriend. The humiliation of learning about her publicly after everyone else. The crushing realization that Tate still didn't fully see him the way Noah wanted to be seen. It all stacked together until Noah felt hollowed out by it. For the first time in years, he genuinely wanted to be anywhere else. Not at this table. Not in this house. Not sitting shoulder to shoulder beside Tate pretending everything was fine while his entire nervous system screamed for escape. Across the room, people continued laughing softly over dessert and drinks, completely unaware that Noah felt seconds away from mentally collapsing in on himself. Talia moved through the kitchen collecting plates while Tate remained close enough beside Noah that their elbows occasionally brushed. Under different circumstances, that small contact might have grounded him. Tonight, it only made him feel worse. Because Tate had no idea what kind of day Noah had actually had. No idea Noah had walked into dinner carrying fear he hadn't even begun processing yet. No idea that beneath Noah's controlled expression was the growing terror of an uncertain future suddenly hanging over his life. And Noah didn't tell him. He couldn't. Not here. Not now. So instead, he sat quietly at the table, wishing desperately he could disappear from the entire evening altogether. What Noah also didn't know, couldn't possibly know sitting there numbly staring at untouched dessert, was that in only a few months his presence at Sunday dinners would vanish entirely. The chair he occupied tonight would remain empty week afterward, slowly becoming something everyone noticed despite initially pretending not to. At first people would ask casually where Noah was. Then less casually. Then eventually with concern. And over the next few years, his absence would settle over Sunday dinners like a ghost nobody quite knew how to speak about without reopening old wounds. I exhaled slowly, trying to calm the storm in my chest. Patience, Tate, just patience. Tate waited a few seconds before leaving the kitchen, spoon in hand, unsure if Noah even had one. I approached him carefully, passing him the spoon. He glanced at it, expression neutral, and said, "I already have one," placing my spoon on the counter. He began distributing dessert plates, moving deliberately and drizzling chocolate syrup on each slice. His movements were precise, but there was a subtle intensity in the way he handled the sauce, as if he were channeling something deeper into it. I watched him from across the table, trying to decipher the subtle signals in his behavior. Was he annoyed, distracted, or was this some quiet ritual, a way of releasing the tension he carried from earlier? Every tilt of his hand, every careful swirl of chocolate seemed loaded with meaning I couldn't quite parse. I wanted to reach out to read him to understand why he was like this, but I stayed still, studying him silently, my mind trying to translate every small gesture into some insight about the friend I thought I knew. Noah's face remained calm, almost serene, but his hands told a story of their own, one I was desperate to interpret. Noah finally excused himself under the pretense of helping with dessert, pushing his chair back with quiet politeness before standing. He needed 30 seconds away from the table, just enough time to breathe, enough time to fix his expression before someone else noticed how close he was to emotionally unraveling. But Tate followed almost immediately. Of course he did. Noah barely made it into the kitchen before Tate drifted in behind him like the tension between them physically pulled him closer. It was infuriating how naturally Tate occupied space even after hurting someone. Noah envied that ease sometimes. Tate moved through life untouched by the kind of hyper-awareness Noah carried constantly. He laughed easily, spoke easily, existed easily. Meanwhile, Noah felt every slight like a bruise pressed repeatedly. He gripped the edge of the kitchen counter while Talia finished arranging dessert plates nearby, trying to force his face back into something neutral before returning to the table. He didn't want pity. He especially didn't want Tate's family watching him crack emotionally over something Tate probably still considered harmless. Then Tate brushed casually past him, close enough for their shoulders to bump. "You okay?" Tate asked quietly. The concern sounded genuine. That almost made it worse. Noah stared down at the plates in front of him for a second because if he looked directly at Tate right now, he might finally say something unforgivable. Was he okay? No. But Tate would never understand the depth of why. Nobody treated Tate the way Tate treated other people emotionally. Nobody forgot to tell Tate important things. Nobody blindsided him publicly, then expected him to recover gracefully afterward. People noticed when Tate went quiet. People cared when Tate felt excluded. People rearranged entire rooms emotionally around Tate's comfort without him ever having to ask. And maybe that was why Noah resented him so much in moments like this. Tate had no idea what it felt like to be emotionally secondary in someone else's life while still loving them enough to stay anyway. Tate frowned slightly at Noah's silence, confusion beginning to creep into his expression now that he was finally sensing the damage he'd caused. Too late. Again. Noah picked up the dessert tray before Tate could say anything else and moved past him toward the dining room, needing distance before the hurt inside him turned into something uglier. Susie nudged Noah's shoulder, whispering something I couldn't quite catch, and he smiled brightly, lighting up in a way that made my chest twist. I turned my attention to Chloe, who was delicately eating the brownie with the chocolate sauce Noah had so meticulously spread over it. Then, almost as if he had a schedule, Noah excused himself and went upstairs. I waited a moment, then followed, my curiosity and unease propelling me forward. When I reached the bathroom door, I tried the knob. It was locked. My eyebrows shot up. Locked? Noah has never locked a door in our entire relationship until his 18th birthday. Why now? I knocked lightly. "Who is it?" "It's Tate. Can I come in for a minute?" I asked. "I'll be done in a minute," came the muffled response. After dessert was passed around, Noah quietly slipped away again, this time disappearing down the hallway toward the guest bathroom with his phone clenched tightly in his hand. The screen glowed 8:00 p.m. across the top beside the reminder notification he'd been dreading all evening. Medication. The word still felt foreign to him. He locked the bathroom door behind himself and stood motionless for a second beneath the harsh overhead light, exhaustion washing over him so suddenly he thought he might actually collapse. The night had become unbearable in layers. Tate, Chloe, the diagnosis, the humiliation of pretending to function normally while internally everything felt altered beyond recognition. With shaky fingers, Noah opened the orange prescription bottle and stared at the pill resting in his palm. He swallowed it dry. For a few seconds afterward, he just leaned heavily against the bathroom counter, staring at his own reflection. His face looked composed enough, but his eyes gave him away. Too tired, too wounded. A knock sounded almost immediately against the door. "Of course." "Tate," Noah muttered under his breath. You've been hiding in here a while, Tate called softly through the door. You okay? Noah shut his eyes. He couldn't even take medication in peace tonight. Part of him wanted to scream at Tate to leave him alone. Another part wanted to unlock the door and tell him everything, to finally let somebody else carry even a fraction of the fear crushing his chest right now. But what was the point? In 3 days, none of this would matter anyway. That thought had rooted itself inside Noah's head sometime after the diagnosis earlier today and hadn't loosened since. 3 days until everything changed. And if Tate could accidentally forget to mention something as significant as Chloe. If Noah could sit beside him every single day and still somehow be the last person to be told important information. Then Noah could keep his own secret too. Fair was fair. Maybe Tate didn't need immediate access to every devastating thing happening in Noah's life either. Noah stared at the locked door while Tate lingered outside waiting patiently, probably worried now in that intense way he always became once he realized Noah was genuinely upset. Too late again. Talia's going to think you died in here, Tate joked lightly through the door after another moment of silence. Noah almost laughed at the irony of it. Instead, he opened the faucet briefly just to make noise before answering flatly, I'm fine. A lie. But no more dishonest than everything else sitting between them tonight. Tate's mind raced. Why would he lock the door? Has something changed? Did I do something to make him feel he needs privacy from me? I leaned closer to the door, trying to peer through the crack that had appeared. My pulse was quickening, my thoughts spiraling. Is this a new boundary, or is he hiding something? Why does it feel like a betrayal just to see him close the door against me? The door opened a crack and I saw him. The bathroom is yours, he said, stepping aside. I froze for a second, studying him, processing the strange awkwardness of the moment. My mind was still buzzing with questions. Why now? Why lock the door? Is he trying to assert some independence, or is this just one of his quirks I never noticed before? Before I could respond, he shoved past me and went downstairs. I stayed there for a moment, processing, feeling both confused and unnerved. Every action Noah took seemed to carry weight, intention, and subtle meaning I couldn't fully decode. What just happened? I thought. Is he pulling away, testing me, or is this something innocent that I'm overthinking? I leaned against the doorframe, letting out a slow breath, trying to calm the storm of questions that had erupted in my head. One thing was clear, Noah was evolving in ways I didn't fully understand, and I needed to figure out how to navigate this, carefully. I stepped into the bathroom not because I needed to go, but because leaving it empty would feel strange and somehow wrong. The room smelled faintly of soap, everything pristine, untouched. I reached down for the toilet paper. The roll was still sealed, unused. That struck me immediately. I glanced at the trash can, empty. No discarded tissues, no evidence of normal bathroom activity. Wait, what the fuck is he doing in here? I asked myself, my pulse quickening. Maybe he's fixing his hair, adjusting a shirt, but he never locks the door for something so mundane. Noah doesn't do this, never. I shifted slightly, surveying the small space. My mind raced. Is he hiding something? Is it personal, or more than personal? I reached for the counter, scanning it, nothing out of place. The sink was clean, toothbrushes lined up neatly. Then why the lock? Why now? Every possible scenario ran through my head. Maybe he's changing clothes, but would he lock the door? Not like this, not just a shirt or a tie. I caught a glimpse of the mirror, empty, reflected only me. Then what? Is he doing something I wouldn't expect, something private? A pang of jealousy, unease, and curiosity twisted together. Is he thinking about me or ignoring me deliberately? I pressed my forehead lightly against the cool tile. My heart was hammering. Noah, what the hell were you doing in here? Is this some boundary I'm crossing or a test? My thoughts raced faster. Does he want me to notice, or is he simply being Noah, locking the door and existing in his own little world? Every fiber of me wanted to knock, to demand to know, to pull back the curtain on this locked moment. But another part, the part that understood him as no one else could, knew better. Let him be. He'll come out when he's ready. Just wait. I sighed, trying to steady myself, my fingers brushing the counter. Still, what the fuck could he be doing in here? I froze for a moment, my eyes catching something in the trash can. A small piece of folded plastic, a capsule wrapper crumpled and discarded. Next to it, a tiny plastic cup, the kind you get from a pharmacy with pills in it. My heart skipped. He must have taken some medication. 100 thoughts collided in my head at once. Why is he taking medicine? Why didn't he say anything? Does he even need it? Is he okay? I crouched slightly, examining the evidence, trying to piece it together. Was it something for stress, anxiety, his heart? Did he see the doctor today for something serious? I shook my head, frustrated. Why would he hide this from me? After everything, why wouldn't he just say, "Hey Tate, I'm on a prescription now, we've shared everything for years, isn't that what we do?" My chest tightened, a mix of worry and irritation. Is he trying to protect me from worrying, or is he just so private he doesn't even think to tell me? Every scenario ran through my mind, some rational, some far too dark. What if this is serious? What if he's keeping something from me that could hurt him? Could I have stopped this if he had told me? I wanted to call out to him, demand answers, but I hesitated. Noah needs space. He'll tell me when he's ready, but how do I not know about this? He trusts me with everything, doesn't he? The capsule in the trash seemed insignificant, yet in that moment it felt like a symbol, a tiny secret he had kept from me, and I didn't like it. I ran my fingers through my hair, packing slightly, internal questions buzzing relentlessly. How long has he been doing this? How long has he been hiding things from me? Am I really as close to him as I think I am, or is there still a part of him I'll never see? Every fiber of me wanted to demand honesty, to understand, to reassure him, but I also knew I had to wait. And yet, I couldn't stop my mind from spinning, imagining every possibility, worrying, questioning, and obsessing. I headed back downstairs, my eyes scanning the living room. Noah was there, calm and composed, settling into his usual quiet rhythm. Everyone had finished dessert. Talia was chatting with Chloe, asking about her family, her ambitions, and her work at the charity center. Chloe was animated, talking about making Los Angeles her home, her dreams, and how she wanted to build a life here. Talia's questions shifted naturally to us. How long have you two been seeing each other? She asked. 4 months, Chloe replied cheerfully. I stole a glance at Noah. He was quietly busy filling drinks for everyone, moving from person to person with careful attention. Even the smallest gestures, pouring a glass of water, refilling a cup, were done thoughtfully, deliberately, like he knew exactly what everyone needed before they asked. He was a water boy, as always, thoughtful, accommodating, precise. Even though I hated seeing him in that role, serving everyone around him like it was his duty, it was almost impossible to look away. It was quintessential Noah, kind, considerate, and entirely selfless. Of course he'd do this, I thought, the familiar pang of jealousy and admiration twisting inside me. Even when it annoys me, he can't help being him. Noah, honey, Talia said, glancing toward me as Noah paused mid-pour, holding a Cosmo for Chloe. Mark called you while you were upstairs. Noah straightened, setting the drink down carefully. Mark, he said, his voice calm, almost casual. I asked him to call me at 8 p.m. to remind me about something. I'll call him back. Excuse me. I picked up the pitcher and stepped toward the countertop, where Noah had set a few drinks down as he walked out of the room. I watched him leave, his presence fading, and then I started pouring drinks in his absence, trying to keep myself busy while my mind raced. Tate hated Mark. Not casually, not rationally. The hatred lived low and constant beneath Tate's skin, sharpened over years by the simple fact that Mark possessed something Tate had never been able to fully secure for himself: effortless access to Noah. That was the part that made Tate quietly insane. Mark never seemed to work for it. Never chased Noah's attention the way everyone else eventually had to. Never fought to be let in. Noah simply opened for him naturally, instinctively, in ways Tate had spent years trying to earn and still couldn't reliably predict. Around most people, Noah kept pieces of himself barricaded behind sarcasm, emotional distance, controlled expressions, and careful silence. Even with Tate, especially with Tate, there were invisible walls constantly shifting into place whenever things became too emotionally vulnerable. But Mark walked through those walls like they didn't exist. Sometimes Tate would watch them together and feel something ugly twist in his chest because Noah smiled differently around Mark. Softer, easier, less guarded, Mark could pull genuine reactions out of Noah without effort, while Tate often had to provoke, push, pry, or corner Noah emotionally just to get honesty from him. And Mark never even seemed aware of the power he carried. That somehow made it worse. He'd sling an arm around Noah casually, steal his attention mid-conversation, make him laugh without trying, and Tate would sit there silently seething while pretending none of it bothered him. Meanwhile, if Tate wanted Noah's attention, it always felt complicated, conditional, fragile, like trying to hold water in his hands without it slipping through his fingers. Mark never had that problem. Noah chose him naturally. Tate envied that more than he could ever admit out loud. Because underneath the jealousy was a quieter fear Tate tried not to examine too closely. Mark represented proof that Noah's emotional distance wasn't unavoidable. Noah was capable of warmth, capable of trust, capable of lowering his defenses completely. He just did it more easily for someone else. And every time Tate witnessed it, envy burned so hot inside him it almost felt humiliating. Why did Mark call? I wondered, watching the ice clink into the glasses. What could Noah need a reminder about at 8 p.m.? My gaze flicked back to the trash can in the bathroom, to the capsule wrapper I had seen earlier. Could it be about the medication he's taking? I shook my head slightly, trying to push the worry away, but my thoughts kept circling. Noah doesn't usually keep things from me, so why now? Is it something serious, or is it just a precaution he didn't think to mention? Each pour of the drinks felt heavier, each motion accompanied by the weight of questions I couldn't voice. I tried to focus on the simple task in front of me, but my mind kept drifting, spinning through every possibility of what the call could mean and why Noah hadn't said a word. I need to ask him, but not yet, not until he's ready to tell me himself. Still, it bothers me that I have to wonder. Noah came back about 10 minutes later, scanning the countertop for the pitcher he had set down earlier. When he didn't see it, his eyes flicked around, landing on the glasses. Someone had poured the rest of the drinks. He shrugged lightly, took a seat next to Anna, and picked up a martini, sipping it carefully. Noah didn't usually drink. On Sunday evenings during our family get-togethers, he allowed himself one glass at most, and never outside the house. I didn't like alcohol much either, but I knew he appreciated having a cocktail ready, neat, and uncomplicated. He always liked things simple, making it easy for everyone so no one had to fuss to serve him. I noticed his eyes were slightly dilated as he lifted the glass. My chest tightened, a flicker of concern and curiosity running through me. Is it just the alcohol, or is there more to this? I watched him quietly sipping, calm on the outside, but somehow different, something subtle yet undeniable had shifted. Some recognition crossed Noah's face as he suddenly spat the alcohol back into his cup, eyes wide for just a moment before he bolted toward the kitchen. I could hear the sink turn on, water gurgling, and the faint rush of him splashing his face. Maybe he forgot that whatever medication he's taking shouldn't be mixed with alcohol, I thought, heart racing as I tried to make sense of it. 2 minutes later he emerged, hair slightly damp as if he'd stuck his head under the faucet. He returned to his seat, picking up a water glass. His eyes were noticeably more dilated than before. He drank with unusual urgency, downing 3 times the amount he normally would, almost as if he were trying to compensate or flush something out. I sat frozen, unsure how to react. What's going on with him tonight? Every small gesture, every sip, every glance felt amplified, like he was hiding something urgent or something had gone wrong. I had no clue what he was experiencing, but the subtle panic and vigilance in his movements gnawed at me. Noah barely took any notice of me that evening. He asked Chloe a few polite questions, what movies she liked, if she enjoyed cooking, but the way he asked them I could tell he was being courteous without genuine interest. That was Noah, always sweet, always making sure new people felt welcome, even if he didn't particularly care to engage. Around 10 o'clock, Chloe mentioned she had to head home early for a morning meeting. I offered to walk her out. As I led her to the car, I glanced over my shoulder and saw Noah in the kitchen, wiping up a spill from Anna's cup with his usual quiet diligence. Chloe was full of compliments during the drive, raving about my mother's warmth and hospitality and remarking on how kind Noah had been. She even liked Susie. I parked at her front door, kissed her cheek politely, leaving her with a smile and a small wave, and drove back to the blue house to pick up Noah. Noah froze for a moment in my bedroom, looking at me with a mixture of surprise and something I couldn't quite place. It was odd, after all, I spent every night in this room and he knew it, yet tonight his gaze lingered, intense and unreadable. Without a word, he turned toward the bathroom. The sound of the shower starting filled the room. I noticed something immediately. He had locked the bathroom door, something he had never done before. My chest tightened. The lock echoed memories of my childhood home when doors closed on me in ways that felt strange and unfamiliar. I knew he liked warm water, and tonight he stayed under the stream for nearly 20 minutes, longer than usual. I tried to focus on my book, a new release the newspaper had recommended, but my attention kept drifting to the sounds behind the door, the subtle hum of the water, the locked barrier between us. Finally, I heard the lock click again as he emerged dressed, which was strange because he usually didn't wear shorts to bed. Noah slept barefoot every night I could remember since we met. Tonight he had on pajamas. He climbed into bed shivering, sliding under the duvet, hugging it close to his body. I closed my book slowly, trying not to make a sound. Something was different tonight, his movements, the way he dressed, even the way he shivered under the covers. The locked door, the unusual pajamas, the shiver, it all added up. Something had shifted and I could feel it pressing in, though I didn't yet know why. "That was fun," Tate said softly, pulling the duvet up to Noah's chin. "Mom cooked too much food, but Chloe liked the dessert." "Good night, Tate," Noah replied abruptly, turning off his lamp and lying back, seemingly ready to go to sleep earlier than usual. Usually we had our ritual small conversations, light teasing, shared glances before drifting off, but tonight felt different. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Why is he acting like this? Normally he's so touchy-feely, always leaning close, brushing hands, laughing at my dumb jokes, letting me sit close on the bed. Tonight, though, he's distant, polite, restrained, like a wall has gone up between us. Is he upset with me? I thought. Did I hurt him without realizing? The image of him at dinner came to mind, the way he sat quietly, answering Chloe's questions, barely acknowledging me, how he disappeared for a few minutes after dessert. Was he angry that I didn't tell him about Chloe before she was brought into the family room? That would make sense. Noah always reacts strongly to surprises, especially ones that feel like they interfere with our dynamic. Noah was shivering in bed, but then there was the bathroom earlier. He locked the door, never done that before. He spent way longer than usual in the shower, shivering afterward, wearing pajamas to bed instead of sleeping fully nude. Is he hiding something, or was he just trying to regain some privacy, some sense of control after a chaotic evening? I turned slightly to glance at him, his face calm but unreadable in the dim light. Is he hurt, resentful, or just tired? Maybe it's both. Maybe he's irritated that he had to entertain Chloe while keeping up appearances, and maybe there's more bubbling under the surface I can't see. Do I ask him? Do I push? My chest tightens. I want to reach out, touch his arm, pull him close, but the moment feels fragile and I don't want to risk him pulling away further. What if he's upset with me? What if he's hurt? I introduced Chloe to the family before giving him a heads up. I replay the night in my mind, the dinner, the desserts, his distracted glances, his bathroom ritual, the locked door, his pajamas, the abrupt lamp switch off. Every little detail tells a story, but which story is true? He's always so careful, so polite, so measured, but tonight the small deviations stand out like flashing red lights. I shift under the covers, letting the blanket settle around both of us, trying to focus on the quiet rhythm of his breathing. Am I imagining his distance? Or is he deliberately holding back, putting up a wall between us? The thought gnaws at me. My jealousy spikes, not the normal playful jealousy, but the sharp, twisting kind. The one that sets my chest on fire. Is Chloe the reason? Is she the wedge in our night, in our shared time, in his trust with me? Noah, I whisper inside my head, if you're upset, I'll fix it. Whatever it is, I can make it better. But the words aren't out loud. I can't risk shattering the fragile calm just yet. I want to understand him, to read him like I always have, but tonight he's enigmatic, closed off, and every instinct I have to reach him is met with this quiet resistance. I take a slow breath and lie back, focusing on what I know. He's here, he's safe, the lamp is off, the room is quiet. Even if he's upset, he's still mine, still here, still breathing next to me. And yet, the gnawing question remains, what changed tonight, and how do I bring us back to normal before this quiet distance hardens into something permanent? I feel the duvet shift slightly as he adjusts under the covers. He's restless, something's on his mind, and it's not about Chloe, he's too polite to let her interfere with us, but something else. Something I don't know yet, something I need to understand. My fingers twitch lightly, itching to reach for his hand, but I resist. Not yet, let him rest. Let him come to me, I can wait, I always can, and when he's ready I'll be here like I always am. The quiet of the room is almost deafening. I listen to his slow, even breathing, every inhale and exhale magnified in the stillness. Tonight he's testing me, tonight he's distant, and I'll take it, I'll wait. But tomorrow I'll find the words, the touch, the reassurance he needs, and we'll be back to the way it should be us. He went downstairs 10 minutes later, shuffling around the kitchen like a restless shadow. Every shift of his body, every clink of dishes, every splash of water made my stomach knot tighter. How can he even be hungry, I thought. Our mother had cooked enough to feed a small army and he'd already eaten his fill at dinner. Yet here he was, moving around like the night itself couldn't hold him. The sound of water pouring into a glass carried through the quiet house. He drank methodically, far more than usual, like he was trying to hydrate himself out of some urgent need. I could hear him sitting at the kitchen counter, the chair scraping against the floor, his hand fumbling for the phone. What is he doing now? The anxiety crept up my spine. My mind raced with possibilities. Was he calling someone? Someone important, someone who made him feel something. I strained to hear the conversation, catching fragments as Noah spoke in his soft, steady tone. Hey, Mark. My heart skipped. Mark. That name always pulled something sharp inside me. I listened closely, ears straining as the exchange continued. I was at the family weekly dinner thing. How did it go? Fine, I guess. There was a slight hesitation, a tension in Noah's voice I wasn't used to, something subtle but enough to make my gut twist. You don't sound very happy about it, Mark replied, his tone quick, almost impatient. No, I took the medication you told me to. Medication? My mind froze. Why didn't he tell me about that? I could almost see him there, carefully following instructions, trying to manage something he felt he couldn't share with me. Mark's voice came again, clipped. Dry mouth, that's about it, go to bed. It takes 72 hours until you're clean, you should be fine, it'll pass, you just have to sequester yourself till then. Sequester himself? Sequester. My chest tightened. 72 hours, why the hell is 72 hours required? What is he taking and why isn't he telling me? I felt a pulse of something I couldn't name, worry, jealousy, frustration, confusion, all tangled together. Noah laughed softly. Yeah, I'll keep him on his toes. The conversation ended and the quiet of the house returned. I could hear Noah's steps retreating back upstairs. My body tensed under the covers as I tried to process what had just happened. 72 hours? What does that mean? What did he take? What are the side effects? Every question spun in my head, answers eluding me. I wanted to go down there to ask, to touch, to make sure he was okay, but I stayed frozen, half in fear, half in respect for whatever he was managing alone. I lay back down, pulling the covers around me, heart still racing. He's hiding something, but he's always hiding things. Is it serious? Is it dangerous? Or is it just him being Noah, meticulous and cautious in his own way? Sleep didn't come easily. My mind replayed the sounds of him downstairs, the water, the chair scraping, the careful, quiet tone with Mark. My hands fisted under the blanket. I felt the familiar ache of jealousy, of worry, of helplessness, of not being able to reach him fully. I just want him here with me, safe, open. I don't care about dinner or Chloe or anything else. I just want Noah. And with that thought, sleep finally crept in, shallow and uneasy, like a shadow hovering over the edge of the bed. I woke up to the emptiness beside me. The bed was cold where Noah should have been and my chest immediately tight. Every damn morning. Why does he leave before I even wake up? It was like clockwork. No warning, no whisper, no soft stretch or good morning, just gone. My mind ran through possibilities. Maybe he was an early riser. Maybe he wanted space. Maybe something was wrong. The faint sounds of running water reached my ears, then a subtle, wet gagging sound. My stomach dropped. He's vomiting. My heart slammed. I shot out of bed, bare feet hitting the floor, adrenaline igniting every nerve. Noah, I called, my voice cracking slightly with panic. Are you okay in there? The sound of him retching continued for a moment longer, then silence. A weak, hoarse voice answered, I'm fine, I'll be out soon. Fine, he's not fine. My hands went to the doorknob. It was locked. Locked. He's never locked the door before in this house. What the hell is going on? I twisted the knob gently, testing it, then louder, my frustration rising. Open the door, Noah, now. I'll be out soon. Leave me alone, Tate. His voice had an edge, irritation, maybe anger, a hint of fear. Leave you alone? My mind couldn't process it fast enough. He's sick. He's sick and he's shutting me out. Every instinct screamed at me to push past the door to grab him to make sure he was okay. My fingers tightened around the knob, shaking slightly. I don't care what you say, I barked. You are not shutting me out. Open this door before my words faltered, swallowed by a surge of fear I couldn't contain. I'll make sure you're okay whether you like it or not. There was a pause, then the sound of water shutting off. I heard his slow, uneven breathing. My chest tightened even more. God, he sounds awful. Why didn't he say anything last night? Why didn't he tell me he was feeling sick or taking whatever it is he's taking? Finally, the door cracked open just a little and I caught a glimpse of him, pale, his hair damp and sticking to his forehead. His eyes flicked up to me, sharp and annoyed, but shadowed with vulnerability I hadn't seen in a while. Leave me alone, Tate, he repeated, trying to pull the door closed again. I blocked it with my shoulder, heart hammering. Noah, look at me, you're not shutting me out, I'm not letting you suffer alone, talk to me, what's going on? His jaw tightened and he stared at me through the door for a long moment. The anger, the irritation, the vulnerability, it all collided in his gaze. He finally sighed, running a hand through his wet hair. I'll be out in a minute, he muttered again, softer this time but still defensive. What the hell is he hiding from me? My mind spiraled. Is it the medication? Did he mix it with something? Is he in pain? Is he scared? The panic twisted with jealousy and frustration. I'm supposed to protect him. I'm supposed to know what's going on. How the hell am I supposed to do that if he locks me out and snaps at me? I tried to steady my breathing, forcing my fingers to unclench the door handle. Fine, take your minute, I said, voice quieter but my heart was still racing. But I'm staying right here. I'm not leaving until I know you're okay, Noah, understand me. There was a pause. I could hear his shallow breaths, his slight shuffling. Finally, the door opened wider and he stepped out, still pale, still wary, but at least facing me. I just didn't want to make a mess or wake you, he admitted, voice trembling just slightly. Mess, wake me? I wanted to grab him, shake him, hold him, make him understand that nothing, not sickness, not discomfort, not embarrassment would ever push me away from him. I stepped closer to the door, softening my tone. Noah, you don't have to do this alone, not ever, not for a second, I'm here, always, do you understand? His eyes flicked down, lips pressed tightly, then just barely he nodded inside, the tension in his posture softened. And I could see him start to relax just a little. God, the way he shuts me out sometimes, I hate it, but I'll never let him go, not ever. I waited until he leaned slightly against the counter, arms crossed, breathing slowly before I finally said, Now, tell me exactly what's going on because I am not leaving until I know you're okay. And for the first time that morning, a trace of vulnerability crossed his face, just enough for me to know I wasn't being shut out completely. Noah had been in there for what felt like an eternity, at least 10 minutes, and I was packing outside, my stomach knotting with panic. Why isn't he answering? Why is he letting this go on? I could hear the faint sound of gagging again and my heart jumped into my throat. Enough. I knocked sharply on the door. Open the door, Noah. My voice was more forceful than I intended. I rattled the doorknob, locked again. Gotta admit, he never locks doors, never. My hands clenched, teeth grinding in frustration. Panic prickled at my temples. Is he that sick? Or is he hiding something from me again? I grabbed the master key from the cupboard and unlocked it. The lock clicked and I pushed the door open, heart hammering. My eyes fell on him immediately. He was on his knees in front of the toilet, head buried, body trembling with another wave of vomiting. Pale, soaked hair clinging to his forehead, shoulders shaking. My God, he looks terrible, absolutely awful. Noah, I said, my voice softening instinctively. I knelt down beside him, placing both hands gently on the sides of his head. Have you seen a doctor? You just keep throwing up, look at you. He flinched at my touch, jerking slightly away. His blue eyes, watery and tired, met mine for a split second before sliding away. Just leave me alone, Tate, he croaked, voice strained but sharp. Just go away, I don't feel well right now and I don't want to deal with whatever that is, just get out. Get out, my chest tightened, panic twisting into a mix of frustration and helplessness. He's sick and hiding it from me. How can he say that? How can he push me away when all I want is to make sure he's okay? I hesitated, hands still hovering near him, trying to decide. I couldn't just leave. No, I'm not leaving him like this. My fingers flexed, wanting to comfort him, wanting to hold him upright, make him understand he didn't have to fight alone. Listen, Noah, I said quietly, though my tone was firm, I'm not leaving, not while you're like this. You don't get to push me away when you're sick, not ever. I'm not going anywhere, do you hear me? He groaned, burying his face again, gripping the edges of the toilet bowl, his trembling hands clenched at the rim. I said go away, Tate, I mean it. Mean it, my heart sank. How can he be so stubborn, so defiant? Even when he's hurting, my mind raced with worry. What if he got dehydrated? What if he passed out? I needed to stabilize him to make sure he didn't hurt himself. I eased closer, placing my hands gently on his upper arms this time, careful not to smother him. I'm not asking, I said, voice low and controlled. I'm telling you, I'm staying. You're not doing this alone. I don't care if you're mad at me. I don't care if you hate that I'm here. I'm not leaving until I know you're safe. His body stiffened at my words. I could feel the tension in his back, the shivering that ran through him, the way he tried to curl inward. Damn it, why is he like this? Why can't he just let me help him? My hands remained firm, grounding him, anchoring him so he wouldn't collapse entirely. Finally, after a long, tense pause, his shoulders sagged slightly. He muttered almost inaudibly, "Okay." Okay, my chest heaved with a mix of relief and lingering fear. That's all I need. That's all I need to start helping him. I guided him gently back from the toilet, supporting his weight, and tried to get him to sit upright on the floor. My mind was racing with questions, worry, and helplessness, but one thing was clear: I wasn't letting him face this alone. I watched him curled around the toilet, shivering slightly, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. His pale, clammy skin and damp hair made my chest tighten. God, he looks pitiful. How long has this been going on? Was he throwing up at my parents' house last night? I didn't notice anything then, but with Noah, how could you really know? I picked up the water glass from the counter and held it toward him. Here, take some water, I said, my voice soft but insistent. Just leave me alone, he croaked, barely lifting his head. No, I said firmly. You're not doing this alone. I'm not leaving you like this. You're my priority, I mean it. He flinched slightly, trying to recoil into the porcelain, but I lowered myself to the cold tile beside him, careful not to crowd him. Maybe this will make him realize I'm not leaving. He can't push me away when he's like this. I'm not going to leave, Noah, I said again, my fingers brushing against the edge of his damp shirt. You're exhausted and you look terrible. I'll stay right here with you, just let me. He exhaled shakily, labored breaths that made my stomach twist in panic. No, I need privacy. His voice was strained, almost pleading. Privacy? I shook my head. He doesn't need privacy. He needs help. He's weak and he's scared. He doesn't even realize how sick he is right now. I stretched my arm toward him, careful not to touch too much, just enough to offer stability. You don't have to hide from me, Noah. I'm not going to judge you or make you do anything you don't want. I just don't want to see you like this and do nothing. Please, let me stay. He pressed his face harder against the toilet bowl, curling tighter, and my chest clenched. Damn it, he's so stubborn. He's always had walls, but tonight, he's hiding behind exhaustion and fear. I get it. I've seen him scared before, but this is worse. I settled onto the floor, back against the wall, leaving space between us but close enough that he could feel I wasn't going anywhere. I'm not leaving, Noah. You can have all the privacy you want, but I'm right here. Just breathe. I'll stay right here. His ragged breathing filled the bathroom, and I couldn't help but glance at the clock. How long has he been like this? How much longer will he fight me off? I whispered softly, more to myself than to him, you don't have to do this alone. Not ever, Noah. He stayed curled around the toilet, silence hanging heavy between us, but at least he hadn't pushed me away entirely. That's a start. That's all I need right now. I sat on the bathroom floor for a moment, leaning back against the cold tile, letting my frustration bubble under the surface. I've never had him shut me out like this before. He's always let me be there, let me help. And now he's yelling at me, snapping at me, like I'm the enemy. How am I supposed to protect him if he won't let me in? Noah was too weak to even lift his own head. The man who normally carried himself with quiet confidence now sat crumpled against the bathtub, looking painfully fragile, his damp black hair sticking to his forehead while his body shook with exhaustion. His arms hung uselessly at his sides as though even the effort of moving hurt too much. Every few seconds his stomach twisted again, drawing another miserable sound out of him before he leaned over the toilet, too drained to even fight it anymore. There was something pitiful about seeing Noah like this. He always tried so hard to appear strong, composed, untouchable, but sickness stripped all of that away and left behind only a trembling 26-year-old man who could barely keep himself upright. I lowered myself onto the bathroom floor beside him without hesitation, ignoring the freezing tiles beneath my knees. One hand slid behind Noah's neck carefully, cradling his head so he wouldn't collapse forward, while the other brought a glass of water toward his mouth. His eyelids fluttered weakly at the touch. Noah tried to lift the glass himself out of habit, stubborn even now, but his hand trembled so badly he almost dropped it. "I've got you," I whispered softly. The words seemed to break something in him because Noah stopped trying to pretend he could manage on his own. He let his weight lean against me completely, exhausted and defeated. I tilted the rim of the glass gently against his lips, helping him sip little by little. Water dripped down his chin and onto his pale throat because he was too weak to swallow properly at first. I wiped it away with my sleeve without thinking twice about it. Noah gave a faint, embarrassed grimace, as though apologizing for being reduced to this state. But I didn't mind, not even a little. I stayed steady beside him while another wave of nausea hit. Noah's body jerked violently as he got sick again, his breathing ragged and uneven afterward. When it was over, he sagged heavily into my chest, shaking all over from how miserable he felt. He looked absolutely worn down, pale skin clammy with sweat, hazel eyes glassy and unfocused, lips dry and colorless. He seemed smaller somehow, like the sickness had hollowed him out and left only exhaustion behind. "It's okay," I murmured again, rubbing slow circles across his back. "You're okay." Noah gave the tiniest nod against my shoulder, too tired to speak. That hurt more than anything. Noah always had something sarcastic or irritated to say, always some sharp comment ready, but now he could barely keep his eyes open. His existence in that moment felt heartbreakingly pitiful. He looked like a man whose body had simply given up on him. Eventually, the vomiting quieted. The bathroom fell silent except for Noah's weak breathing and the faint dripping of the faucet nearby. His entire body went limp against me as exhaustion finally overtook him completely. For a terrifying second, I thought he'd stopped responding altogether before realizing he had simply passed out. "Noah," I whispered urgently. No response. I adjusted him immediately, pulling him more securely into my lap so his head rested safely against my chest instead of the hard tile floor. One hand stayed cupped around the back of his neck protectively while the other stroked damp strands of hair away from his face. He looked so vulnerable, unconscious like that. Without the tension constantly held in his expression, Noah looked younger than 26. Younger and unbearably tired. The bathroom tiles were ice cold beneath us, but I refused to move him. I was scared that if I let go for even a second he'd get sick again or stop breathing properly. So I just sat there holding him, letting his dead weight sink against me while I listened carefully to every shallow breath that escaped him. His skin burned hot with fever despite the trembling chills racking his body. Every now and then, a weak shiver passed through him, and I tightened my arms instinctively, trying to warm him the only way I could. I hated seeing Noah reduced to this. Noah was supposed to be the strong one, the calm one, the man everybody leaned on without realizing how exhausted he secretly was underneath it all. Seeing him broken down on a bathroom floor, too weak to drink water by himself, made something ache deep inside my chest. He looked abandoned by his own body. 2 minutes later, Noah finally stirred weakly in my arms with a soft groan. His eyelashes fluttered as he struggled back toward consciousness, disoriented and exhausted. I later found out that Noah had contracted gonorrhea and was taking medication to treat the infection. I keep my eyes soft, unfocused, the way I've learned to do when I'm trying not to feel too much. Then a red pickup speeds past us in the opposite direction. The moment it does, my stomach flips violently like my food is rushing upward all at once. Heat floods my chest. My mouth fills with saliva. It's immediate and unmistakable nausea, panic, a sudden certainty that I'm about to be sick or lose control or both. My body braces for something my mind can't see. I press my forehead lightly against the glass, breathing through my nose, trying to keep everything where it belongs. The road keeps moving. Chloe keeps driving, unaware of the quiet emergency happening inches behind her. I don't say anything. I just sit there, swallowed by the feeling, counting the seconds until my stomach settles and the world feels drivable again. The doctor noticed how clammy my hands and forehead were, his brow furrowed as he gestured toward the examination table. "Lie down," he said gently. I eased myself onto it, my head throbbing, my body shivering despite the warmth of the room. My teeth chattered slightly and my skin felt icy against the thin hospital gown. He draped a thick blanket over me, the fabric heavy but comforting against my shivering body. Chloe hovered nearby, her hand resting lightly on mine. "Are you feeling dizzy?" the doctor asked, his voice calm but attentive. I nodded weakly. "Yeah, and my chest, it feels tight." Chloe's eyes flicked to me, concern sharp. "Hey, just breathe with me, okay?" she whispered. She drew in a slow, deliberate breath and I tried to follow, matching her rhythm as best I could. The doctor jotted something down on his chart. His vitals are elevated, heart rate, blood pressure, all signs of severe stress. He's experiencing acute anxiety. He looked at Chloe. "This isn't unusual for someone with Tate's history, especially given recent triggers. He's in a state of fight or flight, even if there's no immediate threat." I lay on the table, wrapped in the blanket, still trembling slightly. Chloe's hand never left mine, though. The doctor pulled up a chair beside us, his tone calm and steady. "Let's talk about what triggers this," he said gently. "Knowing your triggers doesn't make them go away, but it helps you recognize the warning signs before your body spirals out of control." Chloe squeezed my hand. "You don't have to answer if it's too much," she said softly. I shook my head. I know what sets it off. It's smells, tastes, certain places, noises, water, lights, cars driving by too fast," my voice faltered. "Even something like cranberry juice." The doctor nodded. "Exactly, your body remembers what your mind has tried to bury. That's why grounding exercises are so important. They bring you back to the present, to safety." Chloe leaned closer. "How do I help when it happens?" she asked, her voice tight with concern. "Let him breathe first," the doctor said. "Slow, deliberate inhalations. Count on him if he can manage it. Remind him where he is. Keep your voice calm, your hands gentle. Physical touch can help, but only if he's receptive." Chloe nodded, glancing at me. "Okay, I can do that. I'll stay with you every step." I swallowed hard. "I don't want to be a burden," I whispered. "You're not a burden," Chloe said firmly. "You're scared and I'm here, that's all there is to it." The doctor added, "Another technique is grounding with your senses. Have her name 5 things she can see, 4 she can touch, 3 she can hear, 2 she can smell, and 1 she can taste. It forces the mind back into the present." I tried to sit up slightly, voice shaky. "Can we try that?" Chloe smiled softly. "Yes, look at me, 5 things you can see." I blinked rapidly, scanning the room. The blanket, the chair, the ceiling light, the chart on the wall, the window. "Good," Chloe said, "4 things you can touch." I touched the blanket, my hand on the table, my knees on the edge of the examination table, the smooth surface of my phone in my pocket. The blanket, the table, my knees, my phone. Chloe's voice was gentle, guiding. 3 things you can hear. The air conditioner, your breathing, the faint hum of the hallway. 2 things you can smell," she continued. I inhaled cautiously. The blanket, disinfectant. 1 thing you can taste," she prompted. I licked my lips. The toothpaste is still in my mouth. Chloe smiled and gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "See, you're here, you're okay, you're safe." I exhaled slowly, feeling the first fragile thread of calm start to weave through the chaos in my chest. The doctor nodded approvingly. "Excellent," he said. "It's not magic, it won't erase the panic entirely, but it gives her control back moment by moment until the wave passes." I pressed my face into the blanket, shivering a little less now. Chloe stayed right there beside me, steady, unwavering. I realized that for the first time in a long while I didn't have to fight alone. Chloe drove us home in silence at first, the hum of the engine filling the spaces between words. I sat in the back seat, curled slightly into myself, blanket draped over my lap like armor. Every bump in the road made me flinch, every passing car sent a flicker of panic through me. Chloe glanced at me through the rearview mirror, voice soft. "Hey, you're doing okay, you're safe now, nothing can touch you back there." I shook my head, unable to look at her. "It doesn't feel like it," I admitted, voice small. "My body, it won't stop." She reached back and rested a hand lightly on my arm. "I know," she said. "I can feel it, but we'll get through it together, just like in the office, you remember the grounding." I leaned back, letting her presence anchor me, the weight of panic slowly lifting. For the first time that day, I realized that surviving didn't always have to be a lonely fight. I could let someone in. I could let her help. The car rolled down the quiet streets and I closed my eyes, letting the rhythm of the tires and the warmth of the blanket remind me that, for now, I was safe. Chloe nodded, squeezing my hand. "Do you need medication?" she asked softly. I shook my head almost automatically. "I don't, I just want it to stop." My voice sounded small to me, swallowed by the hum of fluorescent lights. The doctor leaned closer. "Sometimes the best approach is grounding first. Breathing exercises, a safe environment, and reassurance that your body isn't actually in danger. Your mind is reacting to past trauma as if it's happening again." I tried to nod, but my hands were trembling too much to hold them still. I can't control it," I admitted, voice breaking. Chloe's thumb rubbed circles on my hand. "I know you can't, and that's okay. You don't have to fight it alone. We're here, I'm here." The doctor smiled gently. "That's good support. Remember, anxiety like this isn't weakness. Your body is responding to perceived danger, and right now it thinks it's real. Let it ride it out safely. You're not in danger here." I pressed my forehead against the blanket, taking shaky breaths. "It feels so real," I muttered. "I know," Chloe said softly. "I know it does, but look at me, you're safe. I won't let anything happen to you." I managed a weak nod, feeling the tension in my chest slowly ease just enough to believe her words for a few seconds. The doctor stayed nearby, quiet but observant, while Chloe held my hand, steady and unflinching. By the time we pulled into the driveway, the sky was lightening with early morning gray. I forced myself out of the car, clutching the blanket around my shoulders. My legs felt heavy, unsteady, as if they'd forgotten how to walk on solid ground. Chloe led me up the stairs, one careful step at a time. The hallway stretched before me, too narrow, too bright, too echoing. The familiar creak of the floorboards sounded louder than it should have. Then suddenly my chest seized, my stomach lurched, my hands flew to my mouth, the panic hit like a wave I couldn't brace against. My breaths came fast and shallow. I froze mid-step, clutching the wall for balance. Chloe's voice was calm but urgent. "It's okay, you're okay, just take it slow with me, we'll move through this together." I can't," I gasped. "It's too everything." She stayed right beside me, one hand on my back, the other holding mine. "Yes, you can, look at me, 5 things you can see." I tried, blinking against the bright morning light, the staircase, the walls, the ceiling, your hand, the hallway light. "Good, 4 things you can touch," she prompted. "The walls, your hand, the railings, my blanket." 3 things you can hear. "The creak of the stairs, your voice, the wind outside." 2 things you can smell. Chloe squeezed my hand, her eyes gentle but firm. "You're here, you're safe, nothing is going to happen, we're right here together, you can lean on me." I closed my eyes, letting the wave pass slowly. My knees wobbled, but the tight grip of panic loosened enough that I could continue walking, one step at a time, up the hallway. By the time we reached my bedroom door, I was shaky but steady. Chloe followed, helping me inside, keeping a hand on my shoulder. I sank onto the bed, pulling the blanket around me like a shield. She knelt beside me, brushing a stray hair from my face. "You did it, you made it, that's progress." I nodded faintly, exhausted but grateful. For the first time that morning, I felt the possibility that panic, while fierce, could be survived, and that I didn't have to survive it alone. "Here's a camcorder," Chloe said, handing me an old recorder full of home movies. I turned it over in my hands, the weight familiar and nostalgic. I pressed play and the screen flickered to life. There was a 10-year-old Noah smiling broadly at the camera, waving his arms like a monkey. His laughter was bright, unguarded, the kind of joy that made your chest ache with its simplicity. I laughed softly, the sound catching me off guard. "Look at him," I murmured. He's so happy here." He was talking about visiting the zoo for a field trip, recounting every detail with the earnest excitement only a child could have. "And then we saw the elephants, and the monkeys, and I almost got lost, but it was okay." I chuckled again, feeling warmth spread through me. For a moment, all the fear, the panic, the memories of trauma, they faded into the background, eclipsed by this small, golden fragment of life. Chloe sat beside me, quiet, letting me watch. "He's always had that curiosity," she said softly, "always trying to see everything, experience everything, even when life wasn't easy." I nodded, my eyes still glued to the screen. It's strange, I whispered, seeing him like this before everything, before pain and fear and, my voice faltered. Chloe reached over, brushing a hand over mine. It doesn't erase the past, she said gently, but it reminds you he was still him, still full of life, and that's important, that part of him never went away. I smiled faintly, the tightness in my chest loosening just a little. Yeah, he's still that boy somewhere inside. And for the first time in a long while, I let myself sit with that thought, letting a tiny spark of peace bloom amidst the memories and the panic. I kept watching, unable to look away. The little video showed Noah running around the zoo, pointing excitedly at the monkeys swinging overhead, his laughter echoing in the small screen like a fragile bell. I remember him like this, I whispered to Chloe, before everything changed. Chloe leaned closer, her hand brushing mine. Even when things got complicated later, he was still that boy somewhere inside, that curiosity, that energy, it never went away. I saw myself at 6 years old, celebrating my birthday. My tiny hands clutched a fork as I dug into a thick slice of cake, chocolate frosting smeared across my cheeks and nose. The smell of sugar and cocoa filled the room, warm and comforting. Noah, or rather, a boy from the memory, was leaning close, licking chocolate from my chin, laughing at the mess I'd made. His excitement was contagious, and I giggled, frosting sticking to my lips. Then my eyes drifted downward and I noticed the shorts I was wearing. They were bright, too large, riding awkwardly on my small frame. Something about them struck me, a sudden awareness of how I looked, of how I was perceived. Even at that age, I felt the tiniest flicker of self-consciousness, the first hint that appearance mattered in ways I didn't fully understand. I laughed softly to myself, the memory vivid but distant, sweet and strange all at once. Chloe watched me quietly, letting me sit with the past, letting me feel the small joys and the subtle anxieties that shaped me. The cake, the frosting, the shorts, all of it blended together, a snapshot of innocence tinged with the first brush of awareness. And for a moment, I wasn't panicked, I wasn't anxious, I was just a child, messy and happy and completely alive in the moment. I let my eyes drift across the screen, unfocused, just taking in whatever caught my attention. Then something meaningless, random, flashed on the screen. I screamed. The sound ripped from my chest, high and raw, echoing through the apartment. Chloe came running from the kitchen, panic etched across her face. What happened? Are you okay? I didn't answer. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. The old 1980s tape, the camcorder, the memories, everything slid into my grip. I ripped it from the player, my fingers trembling, my chest heaving, and without a second thought, I tore it up and threw it into the trash. Chloe knelt beside me, voice gentle but firm. Hey, look at me, it's okay, you're safe, it's just a tape, nothing can hurt you here. I shook my head violently, unable to form words. The panic buzzed like electricity under my skin, sharp and relentless. No, can't see it. She reached out slowly, placing her hands on mine, grounding me. It's gone, you destroyed it, it's gone, breathe with me, in and out, just like we practiced. I closed my eyes, shaking, trying to match her slow, steady rhythm. My body protested, my mind screaming fragments of old fear, but with Chloe there, pressing her hands gently against mine, I felt the waves slowly begin to pass. Minutes later, I sat back, chest heaving, staring at the empty trash can. The tape was gone. The memory, at least in that form, was gone. Chloe didn't let go of my hands. You did it. You faced it even if it scared you, and now it's gone. I nodded faintly, still trembling, still raw, but somewhere in the chaos, a tiny thread of relief began to weave through the panic. I slumped onto the couch, the blanket still wrapped around me, tears spilling down my face before I could stop them. My hands trembled as I buried my face in them, and through the sobs, a single name escaped my lips. Noah. Chloe's hand was on my shoulder immediately, gentle but insistent. SHH. It's okay to cry, you're safe here. I shook my head, tears falling freely now. I can't stop thinking about him, about everything. Chloe leaned closer, her voice soft and steady. I know, it's okay to feel it, it doesn't mean you're weak, you've carried so much, let it out, I'm right here with you. I gasped between sobs, I wish, he didn't have to, he didn't. My words faltered, impossible to finish. Chloe wrapped her arms around me, letting me cry into her shoulder. I know, she whispered. I know it hurts, but you're not alone. I'm here. We'll get through this together. I pressed into her, shivering from the intensity of the release. Every tear, every gasp of breath felt like it was pulling out the fear and the panic that had lodged in my chest for so long. And with Chloe holding me, I allowed myself finally to mourn not just the memory but everything that had been tied to it. Noah, I whispered again, softer this time, almost like a prayer. I wish things were different. Chloe held me tighter. I know, I wish that too, but right now you're here, you're safe, and I won't let anything hurt you while you're with me. For the first time since the tape, I felt the edges of panic dull, replaced by a fragile sense of security. And even though the tears kept coming, I didn't fight them. I didn't try to hide them. I just let myself cry and let Chloe be there to hold me through it. Make it stop, I whispered, barely audible, my voice trembling. Please, make it stop. My eyes were closed tight, tears streaming down my cheeks. My body shook, trembling from the weight of panic and grief. Chloe's face softened as she knelt beside me. I know, love, I'm here, you're safe, I'm going to help you. I lay on the floor, the blanket wrapped around me, phone still pressed lightly against my ear. Noah's voice flowed through the line, calm, steady, familiar. Each word, each inflection was a tether to the present, a lifeline pulling me back from the edge of panic. Slowly, my eyelids grew heavy, the tension in my shoulders eased. My chest, still shaky, started to relax in small, uneven waves. I wasn't completely calm, but for the first time that day I felt safe enough to let go. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a small, fragile thread of calm tug through me. The panic hadn't disappeared, but it no longer ruled my body. And with Noah's voice in my ear, I realized I wasn't facing it entirely by myself. I lay on the floor, the blanket wrapped around me, phone still pressed lightly against my ear. Noah's voice flowed through the line, calm, steady, familiar. Each word, each inflection was a tether to the present, a lifeline pulling me back from the edge of panic. Slowly, my eyelids grew heavy, the tension in my shoulders eased. My chest, still shaky, started to relax in small, uneven waves. I wasn't completely calm, but for the first time that day I felt safe enough to let go. In June, we sat at the same restaurant, the band playing something soft and romantic in the background. Candlelight flickered between us, catching in Chloe's hair. My hands were steady this time, my heart wasn't racing the way it usually did. Will you marry me? I asked, the words simple, honest, unguarded. Chloe didn't hesitate, she smiled, the kind of smile that reaches the eyes, and said yes. Relief washed over me first, then warmth, and finally something akin to quiet solemnness. I hadn't expected fireworks. What I felt was steadier than that, safer. For once, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt organized, predictable in a good way. Chloe made lists. She sketched ideas on napkins. She laughed when I teased her about being too practical. After I married Chloe, family dinners had finally resumed, mostly because everyone wanted Noah to return, and Noah wasn't there. Months after I told Noah that we shouldn't be around each other, Talia had somehow managed to convince Noah to come over for Sunday dinner. Noah had to sit there and watch Tate and Chloe hold hands, playing the part of the perfect couple. Noah stood with his back to the kitchen doorway, shoulder leaning lightly against the counter, his phone pressed to his ear while he scanned the cabinet for glasses. Yeah, he said casually, I'll be out by 10:30 tonight. There was a short pause while the person on the other end talked. Yeah, we can go back to your place, Noah continued, voice easy and relaxed. Fool around, whatever. My heart lurched so violently it felt like it dropped straight through my stomach. Riley. It had to be Riley. I stayed frozen in the doorway, listening even though every instinct told me to leave. It's all right, Noah said into the phone. It's just a family get-together. I haven't seen them in a while. He grabbed a glass from the cabinet, spinning it between his fingers while he talked. I've been traveling anyway, he added. Went on that cruise to the Philippines with Mark, just got back yesterday. He laughed quietly. It was great. My chest tightened. Mark. The name alone twisted something deep in my gut. Noah leaned his hip against the counter, completely at ease. Tonight would be nice, he went on. I can bring some tea and some nitrous, we can live it up. Nitrous. Drugs. My jaw clenched instantly. Of course he would be doing that now too. I must have made some sort of movement because Noah suddenly went quiet, listening to whatever Riley was saying on the other end. My stomach dropped further when Noah answered. No, I haven't talked to Tate, he said. Each word felt like a blade. And honestly, I don't want to. My chest tightened painfully. But he's here, Noah continued, voice flat. As long as I avoid him, I'll be fine. The words hit harder than anything else. Avoid him. I felt rooted to the spot, unable to move. Noah listened again, then sighed softly. I've got to go, he said. They're probably wondering where I am. He reached for the stack of glasses. I found the drinks anyway. Another pause. I'll be over soon. A beat. Okay, bye. He ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket. Then he turned and walked straight into my 8-pack. The glasses rattled slightly in his hands as he stopped short. For a second, neither of us spoke. Noah's blue eyes lifted slowly to meet mine. The relaxed expression he'd worn on the phone vanished instantly, replaced by something guarded and cold. Tate. Just hearing my name on his lips again made my chest ache. You're doing drugs now? I asked quietly. Noah's eyebrows lifted slightly, unimpressed. It's nitrous, he said flatly. Relax. That's not the point. It actually is, he replied. He tried to step around me. I moved in front of him before I could stop myself. So that's your plan tonight? I asked. Wine, drugs, and Riley's bed. Noah's jaw tightened. Move. Answer me. His eyes hardened. You heard the conversation. The jealousy boiling in my chest felt unbearable. You said you didn't even want to see me, I said. That's correct. The bluntness knocked the air out of me. You were avoiding me? I asked. Yes. Noah shifted the glasses in his hands, clearly irritated. Now if you're done interrogating me. You're really going over there tonight? I cut in. Yes. The word came without hesitation. My hands curled into fists at my sides. You're better than that, I said quietly. Noah actually laughed. Better than what? Drugs, random hookups. He tilted his head slightly, studying me like I was missing something obvious. Both of those things were good enough for you, so why can't I do it? You don't get to have opinions about my life anymore, Tate. That doesn't mean I stop caring. Something flickered briefly in Noah's expression. Then it disappeared. Well, he said coolly, you should probably start. I thought we were close, I said quietly. The words felt small the moment they left my mouth. Noah had already taken a few steps away, but he stopped. Slowly, he turned back toward me. His expression was composed, almost polite, but the warmth that used to live in his eyes was gone. Or maybe it had been gone for a long time. Or at least, I continued, struggling to keep my voice steady, I thought we were on good terms. Noah's gaze lingered on me for a moment. Then he gave a small shrug. The last time we saw each other, I asked, I thought we were okay. Noah's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. I've moved on from you, Tate. The way he said my name was calm, but it carried something sharp underneath. We're just people passing in the night. The sentence hit harder than I expected. We just happen to know the same people, Noah continued, that's all. I stared at him, feeling like the floor had shifted under my feet. This is a family event, he said, gesturing vaguely toward the dining room where laughter drifted through the hallway. That doesn't mean everyone here is somebody I want to talk to. I'm not family, Noah said. I have a pretty good idea who made that impossible. You made choices, now you have to live with it. My throat tightened. Riley isn't a random hookup, we're dating, he added. The word fine sounded like a lie. As long as we don't bump into each other, Noah said calmly. As long as we don't have to hold a conversation or pretend everything's okay, it works. My chest ached. I'm here for my friends, he said, and for your mom. He paused. That's it. Then his eyes met mine again, completely unflinching. Not you. The words landed like a punch to the chest. Noah shifted the glasses in his hand. Excuse me. And then he walked past me. Just like that. Like he couldn't wait to get away. Standing near me was uncomfortable. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just stood there in the middle of the kitchen while Noah disappeared down the hallway toward the dining room. Toward the voices. Toward the life he seemed perfectly capable of living without me. And I watched